Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraят. Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Okay, so we're reading from Canto 11, Canto 7, Chapter 11. So we finished those general principles that all human beings have to follow. So I'll just read it once. Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, observing fast on certain days of the month, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong, control of mind, control of senses, non-violence, celibacy, charity, reading of scripture, simplicity, satisfaction, rendering service to saintly persons, gradually taking leave of unnecessary engagements, observing the futility of the unnecessary activities of human society, remaining silent and grave and avoid unnecessary talk, considering whether one is the body or the soul, distributing food equally to all living entities, both men and animals, seeing every soul, especially in the human form, as a part of the Supreme Lord, hearing about the activities and instructions given by the Supreme Lord, who is the shelter of the saintly persons, chanting about these activities and instructions, always remembering these activities and instructions, trying to render service, perform worship, offering obeisances, becoming a servant, becoming a friend, and surrendering one's whole self. Okay, Yudhishthir, these 30 qualifications must be acquired in the human form of life. Simply by acquiring these qualifications, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, it's nice to possibly print this and keep it in front of us. And, every time we get a chance, we can keep looking at these qualities and seeing where we stand, what is our, of the 30, what are the next 1, 2, 3 top qualities that we have to develop. And we have to become mindful about them. Mindful meaning that every time we are faced with something related to a particular quality, and we are not able to do it up to the expectation, then we pray for mercy, we put more effort, etc., etc. And this has to go on. This is the sincerity of a Atma, right? As a Jiva, we have to be sincere in our attempts to become pure and please Guru and Krishna. And when we are trying to do this proactively, that itself draws mercy. Because see, we by our own efforts or strength, we cannot develop these qualities. We need the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And when we are sincerely trying, then we get the mercy. And we will be possibly, we will develop these qualities over a period of time. And of course, the central process is chanting, right? So chanting is the big thing, right? If we can do chanting nicely, then automatically these qualities, good qualities, will develop in us. Many times, we try to do too many things. Actually, we don't need to do too many things. The focus needs to be on chanting and reading. That's all. That is the heart of spiritual life. So if you can do that nicely, automatically everything else is accomplished. Okay, so we'll continue from here. Verse 13. Those who have been reformed by the Garbhadhan ceremony and other prescribed reformatory methods called samskaras, performed with Vedic mantras and without interruption. Without interruption means there are multiple samskaras, and one after the other, as time comes, they need to be done. And who have been approved by the law by Lord Brahma are Dvijas, or twice born. So who is twice born? Not just somebody born in a Brahmana family, Kshatriya family, or Vaishya family. Uh, Ideally, such people should have been born out of Garbhadhan Samskar. That is the first requirement. And because this Garbhadhan Samskara and other Samskaras, at least okay, in India, Vivaha Samskara is still in vogue. Shraddha, which is another Samskara, is now becoming, very obsolete. Not many people are doing. So like this, we'll lose all the Samskaras. And Garbhadana Samskara is long last. Nobody actually, very few people, they don't even know about it. So if one is not born from a Garbhadhana Samskara, then they can't be called Dvijas even if they're born in these families. And that is why Shastra says Kalo Shudra Sambhavaha. In Kali Yuga, everybody is a Shudra because no Garbhadhan Samskar. Such Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. So Dvijas can only be Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. Those who have Shudra mentality can't become Dvijas. Purified by their family traditions and by their behavior, should worship the Lord, study the Vedas, and give charity. This is for Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. Of course, we know that on the path of bhakti, we don't look at once a soul, once a jiva has come to devotion and is seriously engaged in serving Guru and Krishna, then we don't look at these Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Varna from that perspective, or don't treat somebody as a Shudra. Of course, now if somebody has to come to study the Vedas, then they have to come to the stage of Brahmanas. Otherwise, so one has to get Brahmin initiated. Then they can study Vedas. Of course, even Kshatriyas and Vaishyas can study Vedas according to this, but they won't have the capability that they can just read under the guidance of Brahmanas. They should worship the Lord, study Vedas, and more importantly, give charity. In this system, they should follow the principles of the four ashramas: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. So we've been talking about this. So that importance of seriously considering this transition from Grihastha to Vanaprastha, or at least to consider exit from Grihastha is very important. Whether we enter full-fledged Vanaprastha or not is another consideration. But at least we should exit Grihastha, which means giving up material responsibilities to use that time completely in Krishna's service. So this is important. Now, there is discussion about Brahmana occupations. For a Brahmana, there are 6 occupational duties. A Kshatriya should not accept charity, but he may perform the other 5 of these duties. So, Patan, Patan, Yajan, Yajan, Dana, Pratigraha. These are the 6 occupational duties for a Brahmana. Patan meaning reading Shastra, Patan meaning studying, helping others read Shastra or teaching Shastra. Yajan, doing Yajna. Yajan, teaching others to do Yajna or Puja. Dana, taking charity. Pratigraha, giving charity. So this Kshatriya can do all the other 5 duties, but he cannot accept charity. A king or Kshatriya is not allowed to levy taxes on Brahmanas. Look at this. This is Varnashrama, wherein Brahmanas are not levy taxes, others are. But a Kshatriya or a king, he may make his livelihood by levying minimal taxes. Again, even for others, minimal taxes, custom duties, and penalty fines upon his other subjects. So he can make his livelihood, meaning, of course, most kings don't need to make a livelihood out of this, but for for the treasury, etc., etc., they can levy minimal taxes, custom duties, and penalty fines upon other subjects, not on Brahmanas / Vaishnavas. This is Brahmana. Now, ideally, if we are a Brahmana, we should be doing one of these duties. Of course, then Bhagavatam also says that there is something called as apat dharma, emergency, duty in the time of emergency. Then a Brahmana can do the work of a Vaishya, but never a work of Shudra. He must never beg, he must never, as in, ask for a salary. Of course, one of the ways of living for a Brahmana is just So there are topmost is taking grains which are fallen in the field like that without asking. That is the topmost. That is discussed in the 11th canto. The mercantile community, Vaishyas, should always follow the directions of Brahmanas and engage in such occupational duties as not whatever they want. Vaishyas cannot engage in anything they want. Agriculture, trade, protection of cows. Now, this trade is mainly for fulfilling basic needs. Now, somebody has rice, somebody needs paddy, then he can enable the trade. That is Vaishya mentality. For the Shudras, the only duty is to accept a master from a higher social order and engage in his service. So it's very easy. Shudras don't have additional responsibilities, but Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishyas, they have a responsibility. And if they don't follow, they don't do according to Shastra, then it is sinful. As an alternative, a Brahmana may also take to the Vaishya's occupational duty of agriculture, cow protection, or trade. He may depend on that which he has received without begging. Now, this is what I was saying. He may beg in the paddy field every day, but not house to house, or not from other people. But he may beg in the paddy field. He may collect paddy left in the field by its proprietor, or he may collect food grains left here and there in the shops of grain dealers. These are four means of livelihood that may also be adopted by Brahmanas. Among these four, each of them in succession is better than one preceding it. So, one is whatever he gets without begging. Second is beg in the paddy field every day. Third is collect paddy left in the field. Fourth is collect food grains left here and there. Now, each of these, the one in succession is better than the preceding one, meaning beg in the paddy field is better than whatever is received without begging. Collecting whatever has fallen in paddy field is better than begging in the paddy field, and so on. So Brahmana, worst case, apart from those six primary occupational duties, he can even take up Vaishya occupation, or he can live by these means. But he should never, he should not become a Kshatriya because he can't, and he should not become a Shudra. Except in a time of emergency, lower persons should not accept the occupational duties of those who are higher. Only in terms of emergency. When there is such an emergency, of course, everyone but the Kshatriya may accept the means of livelihood of others. Kshatriya has to protect because emergency means he has to be there. So he cannot take anybody else's livelihood. In time of emergency, one may accept any of the four types of professions known as Rita, Amrita, Mrita, Pramrita, and Satyanrita. But one should not at any time accept the profession of a dog. The profession of Uncha Shila, collecting grains from the field, is called Rita. Collecting without begging is called Amrita. Begging grains is called Mrita. Tilling the ground is called Pramrita. And trade is called Satyanrita. Engaging in the service of low-grade persons, however, is called Shua Vritti, meaning profession of the dogs. Specifically, Brahmanas and Kshatriyas should not engage in the low and abominable service of Shudras. Brahmanas should be well acquainted with all Vedic knowledge, and Kshatriyas should be well acquainted with the worship of demigods. Symptoms of a Brahmana are control of the mind, control of the senses, austerity, penance, cleanliness, satisfaction, forgiveness, simplicity, knowledge, mercy, truthfulness, and complete surrender to the Supreme Lord. So now these 30 qualities are for all human beings. Now these qualities are specifically for Brahmanas. Of course, there is also control of mind and control of senses for others, but Brahmanas' expectation will be higher. His bar will be higher, standard will be higher. So all of these actually. Everybody has some austerity, some penance, but Brahmana has to do more. Cleanliness, very, very important for Brahmanas. Um, I see many times, unfortunately, because of lack of training in ISKCON and lack of maybe proper qualification, one he becomes a Brahmana, meaning one is given Brahmin initiation, but he doesn't have any of these qualities. Now, if the other devotees, general devotees don't have these qualities, it is okay, forgivable. But one who is a Brahmana, he has to have these qualities. At least he should be desiring, he should know that these qualities are expected, and he should be trying to incorporate them in his life. Mm. It's a serious responsibility being a Brahmana. He is supposed to be the, uh, you know, uh, he is the example, standard. He is the standard setter. Brahmanas become low class. Actually, Prabhupada wanted to create high class Brahmanas who can actually guide the whole society, not namesake Brahmanas. So it's very important that, these things are here. Sometimes, all these things are just done out of some requirement, you know. But yeah, we should at least, okay, if there's some requirement, dire need, okay, fine, but at least then one should choose people who are closest to these qualities, not, somebody who's like so totally far away. And once we become Brahmanas, then we have to take up that extra responsibility to try and behave in this way. Satisfaction, very, very important for Brahmanas. Forgiveness, again, they are the top class in the society, so they should forgive people. Knowing that everybody else is ignorant, right? They don't understand. So if they do mistakes, forgive them, correct them, train them. Simplicity, again, we talked about all this. Knowledge, very important for a Brahmana. He should know Brahman, he should know his Sambandha Jnana, Abhideya, Prayojana, he should know. Mercy, truthfulness, and complete surrender. This Purna Sharanagati. So these are symptoms of a Brahmana. To be influential in battle, unconquerable, patient. See, tolerance here, patient here. Kshatriya also has to be tolerant, patient. Brahmana also has to be tolerant. Challenging. You should be patient at the same time challenging. And charitable. To control the bodily necessities, because sometimes, when Kshatriyas are on battlefield, it might be very severe conditions. So to control bodily necessities, to be forgiving, he also has to forgive. Most importantly, to be attached to the Brahminical nature. And to be always jolly and truthful. So this is one additional quality of a Kshatriya, to be jolly. These are the symptoms of the Kshatriya. Now Vaishya, being always devoted to the demigods, spiritual master and supreme lord, Vishnu. They are the only people who will endeavor for dharma, artha, kama. For advancement in dharma, artha, kama. Believing in the words of the guru and scripture, and always endeavoring with expertise in earning money. See, this is very, very important. Yesterday I was talking to one devotee who wants to become a businessman. So I said, I will give you 10 rupees. Can you make 50 rupees out of it in proper means, by using proper means? So a Vaishya means he should be always thinking in this direction. Not necessarily for self benefit, but it's his nature. Like a Brahmana's nature is to always keep looking at right, wrong, teaching, correcting. That is Brahmana's nature. Learning. Kshatriya's nature is always to be, protecting, standing for the right, all these things. That Vaishya, all the time his mind should be working in terms of how to earn money. Of course, nowadays there are the business community who are always worried about earning money, but for themselves. That is not That is not Vaishya. Mm. Offering obeisances to the higher sections of society, which is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishyas, being always very clean. See, even Shudras have to be very clean. Forget about Brahmanas. Being free from duplicity. If Shudras only have to be free from duplicity, what about Brahmanas, higher castes? Serving one's master, performing sacrifices without uttering mantras. So they can also perform sacrifices, but they don't have right to utter mantras. But they should not steal. They should also speak the truth. And giving all protection to the cows and Brahmanas. Here, protection for Brahmanas could be assisting them in their various duties, etc. And protecting the cows. These are symptoms of the Shudra. Okay, now Stri Dharma. To render service to the husband, to be always favorably disposed toward the husband. Oh, we can't understand all this. Tough, right? Render service to husband. What does that mean? To be always favorably disposed toward the husband. To be equally well disposed toward the husband's relatives and friends. See, this is very important. Nowadays, marriage happens, then parents are kept separate. People who got married remain separate. Of course, in some cases, maybe that's the best thing to do. But the duty of the wife is to actually take care of the husband's family nicely. And to follow the vows of the husband. Very important. These are 4 principles to be followed by women described as chaste. There are more verses for chaste women. A chaste woman must dress nicely and decorate herself, not full stop. For whom? Decorate herself with golden ornaments for the pleasure of her husband. Which is why in previous, like if you see Rohini Mata, when Rohini was in Gokul in Yashoda Mata's house, she never used to dress nicely because she was away from her husband. Only when Krishna was born, that Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda give her, sari and other things, and she wears them for that occasion. But otherwise, she was generally very simply dressed because she was not living with her husband. So all this has to be done for the pleasure of the husband, and of course the husband has to be qualified following one of the 4 varnas, ashrama duties and all that. So if somebody is following all these previous rules, then he is a qualified husband, even if he is a Shudra. If he is following his prescribed duties, then he is qualified. And a chaste Shudra woman should be chaste to the Shudra husband. Always wearing clean and attractive garments. Clean, attractive. Again, attractive not for the rest of the world, to please the husband. She should sweep and clean the household with water. No, we will call maid for this. We don't sweep and clean. It's not our work. And household with water and other liquids so that the entire house is always pure and clean. See, always. So Grihini's work is full time. She should collect the household paraphernalia and keep the house always aromatic with incense and flowers, and must be ready to execute the desires of her husband. Being modest and truthful, controlling her senses, and speaking in sweet words. A chaste woman should engage in the service of her husband with love according to time and circumstances. Very difficult, right? Just like all the other verses are so difficult, these are also difficult. A chaste woman should not be greedy, but satisfied in all circumstances. She must be very expert in handling household affairs, which is very, very important. Where money has to be spent, where it should not be spent, how it should be spent. Being an expert in cooking, other like collecting household paraphernalia and all these things. And she should be fully conversant with religious principles, not just sense gratification. Actually, we keep whenever we go for book distribution, we see typically that women prevent men from taking books. The husband comes and he's interested, then we say, hey, why all this? Chalo, let's go. And sometimes husbands are firm. They said, why? What is the problem? I'll take. It's good for us. And then there are other henpecked husbands who just say, okay, fine. They don't know their own swartha, their own self-benefit. They're just running like, dolls. I was talking to some other devotee also. Generally, people are they want to just listen to whatever their wife says. Why? Because otherwise, simply, argument in the house. So just do whatever they say. Okay, easy, escape route, right? But it's not going to help you move in the right direction in life, especially if women are not Krishna conscious. So sometimes, not sometimes, as appropriate, men have to be firm, for which they have to know religious principles. And if women also know the religious principles, then they'll go in the same direction. But who is going to teach all this? Who has time to teach? Who has time to learn? Who is interested in learning? So tough. She should speak pleasingly. Hmm. Why all these expectations? Huh? Why there is no expectation of being pleasing for husband? Because the focus is different. Actually, we have to understand this. Unfortunately, today we are equating men and women, but men have different roles, serious roles to play, right? Now, if you take Kshatriya, he has to be ready to challenge, right? Be influential in battle and all that. No, serious business, right? Now, for a pati who is engaged in these activities, these duties, his wife should be pleasing and deal with the husband nicely. In a way that even if the husband is doing something wrong, he can be corrected. Again, truthfully, see, this is again all literally for everybody. The requirement is to be truthful. At least as devotees, we should try to be truthful. I know some devotees who are very, very, I really appreciate them. They would have done a big mistake in something, but they will sincerely accept, saying that, okay, I did this mistake, please, I'm sorry, please forgive me. It's so easy, situation, just one conversation over. Otherwise, hiding things here and there, saying something, lying, it just becomes more and more difficult to deal with situations. And should be very careful, and always clean and pure. Thus, a chaste woman should engage with affection in the service of a husband who is not fallen, which means he is following his prescribed duties. The woman who engages in the service of her husband, following strictly in the footsteps of the goddess of fortune, surely returns home back to Godhead with her devotee husband and lives very happily in the Vaikuntha planets. So this is 50, like I keep saying, 50% benefit given to women. If men are devotees, the women can easily, and also they're fortunate if they are not stuck in this modern craziness of working, then they have time for Krishna consciousness. In fact, they can make more progress than their husbands, and whatever progress husbands are making, they'll anyway get a share. So their chances of going back home is much, much, much greater, right? So, but these things have to be followed. Then it becomes easy. Among the mixed classes known as Sankara, those who are not thieves are known as Antevasai or Chandalas, and they also have their hereditary customs. See, in Shudras are also part of Varnashrama. Then there are Chandalas who are outside Varnashrama. My dear king, Brahmanas, well conversant in Vedic knowledge, have given their verdict that in every yuga, the conduct of different sections of people according to their material modes of nature is auspicious. So whatever qualities were described so far, if somebody follows this, then it is auspicious both in this life and after death. And that's why it has been given. Guna Karma. Krishna is saying, Uh, Chaturvarnyam Maya system. I have given this so that it is auspicious for the jivas. If one acts in his profession according to his position in the modes of nature and gradually gives up these activities, he attains Nishkama stage. Now, for everybody, this is everybody. See, gradually they have to give up their activities, which means that you have to give up Grahastha ashrama, give up Grahastha responsibilities. Hmm? And he attains Nishkama, meaning from that time there is no desire. He doesn't have any material desire. So, even by Varnashrama, one is supposed to come to the stage of Nishkama. Forget what about devotion? What about devotees? No doubt they have to come to Nishkama. Because we are not just following some mundane process. We are following the most powerful process given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, it has the power to bring us to Nishkama much earlier, much faster than following just Varnashrama over multiple lifetimes. But we should desire to come to that stage. We should not resist it. We should not push it away. See, and Varnashrama is so beautiful. Even somebody just simply following his Varna duties and Ashrama duties. Eventually, he will come to Nishkama stage. And then he'll come to devotion. My dear king, if an agricultural field is cultivated again and again, the power of its production decreases, and whatever seeds are sown there are lost. Just as drops of ghee on a fire never extinguish the fire, but a flood of ghee will. Similarly, overindulgence in lusty desires mitigates such desires entirely. Now, of course, I mean, in Kali Yuga, I don't know how much of this is true. People are all overindulged in lusty activities, and it doesn't seem to end. But of course, here overindulgence is flood of ghee. Uh, in Kali Yuga, for so much overindulgence, one requires money, and that's not available. So, how much ever little is available, periodically people are engaged in their lusty desires. So it is almost like drops of ghee only in fire in Kali Yuga. Mm. But I had this experience of overindulgence. Like I used to at some point of time crazy about clothes. Um, yeah, like at one shot I bought some 20 clothes like that. Overindulgence, craziness. Right, and gradually I lost this, desire for buying clothes. So that kind of experience I've had. So it's possible. Um, People have so much money that they just overindulge and then gone. Like, see, all these kings and all, and they have so much money, so much luxury, etc. So, those who are not self-controlled, those who are not devotees, they'll overindulge in their. Of course, this lusty desires is not illegal, right? Not illicit. It's as per approved, allowed. But even such overindulgence mitigates such desires. So, for example, if somebody wants to eat too much. mm, then what will happen? Then stomach will give way, and then few days they'll at least be shanta. Then again, now if this repeats multiple times, then they will realize, Are Baba, I'm eating, then 5 days I take to recover. So why should I just not stop? Uh, so they will understand and they will give up desires like that. If one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra as described above, even if he has appeared in a different class, he should be accepted according to the symptoms. So this is Guna Karma Vibhakasha. That's what uh, Narada Muni is saying. Okay. Chapter 12. Four spiritual classes. Mm. So now, previously the discussion was more on Varna, now it's more on Ashrama. So it's important. Of course, then there's one chapter only for Grasthas. So this one little bit I'll read fast because this mostly Brahmacharya might not be relevant for all, except that even Grahasthas have to maintain Brahmacharya, uh, in terms of restraint. So those aspects will be relevant, and some of the sadhana aspects will be relevant. So that much we will read. We'll read, and whatever is relevant only we will discuss. Narad Muni said, a student should practice completely controlling his senses, which is not possible for Grasthas. So there is licensed sense gratification. He should be submissive and should have an attitude of firm friendship for the spiritual master. This is required. Those initiated devotees, they should be submissive and should have an attitude of firm friendship for the spiritual master. With a great vow, the brahmachari should live at the Gurukul only for the benefit of the Guru. At both functions, okay, this also partly true for Grihasthas. They don't live at the Gurukul, but They should live only for the benefit of the Guru, meaning whatever they have, they should offer in the service of the Guru. At both junctions of day and night, namely early morning and in the evening, he should be fully absorbed in thoughts of the spiritual master, fire, sun god, Lord Vishnu, and by chanting the Gayatri mantra, he should worship them. So this for Dvijas, twice born Brahmanas. Being called by the spiritual master, student should study the Vedic mantras regularly. Every day before beginning his studies and at the end of his studies, disciples should respectfully offer obeisances unto spiritual master. This we also should do. It's a very good practice. And Brahmanas anyway, they do thrice, but even other devotees can do twice. This is a nice practice to have. Carrying pure kusha grass in his hand, the brahmachari should dress regularly with a belt of straw and with deerskin garments. He should wear matted hair, etc. Okay, this is not recommended. Brahmachari should go out morning and evening to collect alms. Again, not relevant for us. He should offer all that he collects to the spiritual master. He should eat only if ordered. The spiritual master does not give this order, he may sometimes have to fast. This is required for everybody. Quite well behaved and gentle, and should not eat or collect more than necessary. Atyahara prayasascha, this is relevant for grihasthas also. Must always be active and expert, fully believing in the instructions of spiritual master and shastra, relevant for us also. Fully controlling his senses, he should associate only as much as necessary with women, not those controlled by women. This is also absolutely applicable for us. Association with women should be only as much as is required. A brahmachari, or one who has not accepted the grihastha ashram, must rigidly avoid talking with women or about women. Should rigidly. And the grihastha should be only as much as required. For the senses are so powerful that they may agitate even the mind of a sannyasi. So Maya is strongest in the form of women. So we have to be careful. If the wife of the guru is young, a young brahmachari should not allow her to care for his hair, massage his body, etc. Okay. Woman is compared to fire and man is compared to butter pot. Therefore, a man should avoid associating even with his own daughter in a secluded place. Similarly, should also avoid association with other women. One should associate with women only for important business and not otherwise. So this is very, very important. As long as a living entity is not completely self-realized, as long as he is not independent of the misconception of identifying with his body, which is nothing but a reflection of the original body and senses, he cannot be relieved of the conception of duality. Now in ISKCON, a lot of people say, oh, we're all spiritual. We say we are not the body, we are spirit, soul. But see, yes, that is relevant for a devotee who is completely self-realized. Not for all of us. And for all of us, we cannot be relieved of this conception of duality. Man and woman duality, we cannot get out of still, which is epitomized by the duality between man and woman. Thus, there is every chance that he will fall down because his intelligence is bewildered. So please note this. Women can do big favor to men by not interacting with them more than required. Men can do favor to themselves and to the society at large by restraining themselves. This is absolutely required in Vaishnava community, absolutely required. Unfortunately, we see, free mixing. Not at all good, just not good. All the rules and regulations apply equally to the householder and the sannyasi. The grihastha, however, is given permission by spiritual master. This is very important. The grihastha engaging in sexual life should take permission from spiritual master. When to indulge in sex during the period favorable for procreation. No question of doing this, just whimsically as and how one likes. See, and this is grihastha. This is for a grihastha. He has to take permission. How many of us are ready to surrender to this level? Brahmacharis or grihasthas who have taken the vow of celibacy. Grihasthas also should take a vow of celibacy. As described above, should not indulge in the following. So please note, applying powder or ointment to the eyes. Grihasthas also. Of course, this is taken vow of celibacy, so more relevant for men. Massaging the head with oil, not applying oil, massaging with oil. Massaging body with hands. Seeing a woman or painting a woman's picture. Seeing a woman only is prohibited. Which is why it's always good to not make eye contact. This is one very, very important thing. We should try not to make eye contact with women, and especially Shastra says beautiful women are most dangerous. Mm? So don't make eye contact. It's okay. Unless, yeah, like we already in that self-realized stage, when nothing is no effect of the opposite gender, then it's okay. Then it's a different thing. But don't we should also not fool ourselves, thinking that we are so advanced that we can be very strong. Mm. So seeing a woman is also not recommended. Interacting means hearing, speaking. That's all. No need to see. Eating meat, drinking wine, decorating the body with flower garlands, smearing scented ointment on the body. Uh, Powder. People have a lot of this previously. Of course, now this powder is replaced by perfume, but same thing. This is scented ointment, or whatever. Decorating the body with ornaments. This is also not required for a grasta. These they should give up. So men have enough work to do. According to the rules and regulations mentioned above, one who is twice born, namely a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, should reside in the Gurukul under the care of the spiritual master. Okay. Yeah, if possible, the student or disciple should reward the spiritual master Guru Dakshina. And then the disciple should leave and accept one of the four ashramas, one of the other three ashramas, as he desires. So he can either enter Grihastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyas directly. One should realize that in the fire, in the spiritual master, in oneself, and in all living entities, in all circumstances and conditions, Supreme Lord Vishnu has simultaneously entered and not entered. So this is his Samadarshinaha vision, seeing the Supreme Lord everywhere. Supreme Lord is situated externally and internally as the full controller of everything. By practicing in this way, whether one be in a brahmacharya ashram, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa ashram, one must always realize the all-pervading presence of the Supreme Lord. For in this way, it is possible to understand the absolute truth. This is normal varnashrama. For devotees, anyway, we are directly engaging in the service of the Lord, so it's much easier. Now I shall describe qualifications for vanaprastha. Now I'm not going to read this because this is practically not possible. So I'm not going to read this vanaprastha thing. Simply, I'll summarize this. Our Prabhupada, our acharyas have said, vanaprastha means not engaging in material duties, living a life of renunciation, meaning taking up austerities as much as possible, increasing rounds, going to holy places, right, associating with devotees more, engaging more time in devotional service. This is what our vanaprastha is. And we don't have to go too much into the technicalities here because it's practically not possible. Yeah, so I'm not reading this. Okay, so now there is a behavior of a avadhuta. So this is interesting to see what our future state should be. Not our current state, but future state. Nadamuni said, a person able to cultivate spiritual knowledge should renounce all material connections and merely keeping the body inhabitable, meaning keeping body and soul together, meaning being alive. He should travel from one place to another, passing only one night in each village. In this way, without dependence in regard to the needs of the body, the sannyasi should travel all over the world. Person in the renounced order may try to avoid even a dress to cover himself. If he wears anything at all, he should be only a loin cloth. And when there's a necessity, a sannyasi should not even accept a danda. Okay. Okay, actually, this also is not so much relevant for everybody. So, since the material body is sure to be vanquished and the duration of one's life is not fixed, neither death nor life is to be praised. This is relevant for all of us. Rather, one should observe the eternal time factor in which the living entities manifest himself and disappears. Literature that is a useless waste of time, that is, literature without spiritual benefit, should be rejected. This is relevant for us also. A sannyasi must not present allurements of material benefits to gather many disciples, nor should he unnecessarily read many books or give discourses as a means of livelihood. Now we should avoid such people of course not so much relevant for sannyasis within ISKCON, but still I see so many devotees hearing from other so-called swamis on the internet, so we have to be very careful. Hmm. So there's an ancient discussion between Prahlad Maharaj and a great saintly person. So this is nice. Prahlad Maharaj, the most dear servitor of the Supreme Lord, once went out touring the universe with some of his confidential associates just to study the nature of saintly persons. Thus he arrived at the bank of the Kaveri, where there was a mountain known as Sahyadri. There he found a great saintly person who was lying on the ground covered with dirt and dust, but who was deeply spiritually advanced. Neither by that saintly person's activities, by his bodily features, by his words, nor by symptoms of his varnashrama status could people understand whether he was the same person they had known. Meaning he completely changed himself. The advanced devotee Prahlada duly worshipped and offered obeisances to the saintly person who had adopted a python's means of livelihood. Ajagara vritti. After thus worshipping the saintly person and touching his own head to the saint's lotus feet, Prahlada, in order to understand him, inquired very submissively as follows. Seeing the saintly person to be quite fat, Prahlada said, "My dear sir, you undergo no endeavor to earn your livelihood, but you have a stout body, exactly like that of a materialistic enjoyer. I know that if one is very rich and has nothing to do, he becomes extremely fat by eating and sleeping and performing no work. O Brahmana, fully in knowledge of transcendence, you have nothing to do and therefore you are lying down. It is also understood that you have no money for sense enjoyment. How then has your body become so fat? Under the circumstances, if you do not consider my question impudent, kindly explain how this has happened. Your honor appears learned, expert, and intelligent in every way. You can speak very well, saying things that are pleasing to the heart. You see that people in general are engaged in fruitive activities, yet you are lying here inactive." Narada Muni continued. When the saintly person was thus questioned by Prahlada, he was captivated by this shower of nectarian words. And he replied to the inquisitiveness of Prahlad Maharaj with a smiling face. Saintly Brahmana said, "O best of the Asuras, Prahlad Maharaj, who are recognized by advanced and civilized men. You are also a very, very great personality. You are aware of the different stages of life because of your inherent transcendental eyes with which you can see a man's character and thus know clearly the results of acceptance and rejection of things as they are. Narayana, who is full of all opulences, is predominant within the core of your heart because of you are being a pure devotee. He always drives away all the darkness of ignorance as the sun drives away the darkness of the universe. My dear king, although you know everything, you have posed some questions which I shall try to answer according to what I have learned by hearing from authorities. I cannot remain silent in this regard, for a personality like you is just fit to be spoken to by one who desires self-purification." See what he's saying. Just talking to a pure devotee is self-purification. "Because of insatiable material desires, I was carried away by the waves of material nature's laws. And thus, I was engaging in different activities, struggling for existence in various forms of life." So, the Avaduta is talking about his previous births also. He's saying, because of insatiable material desires, I was being carried away and I lived in so many various forms of life. In the course of the evolutionary process, which is caused by fruitive activities due to undesirable material sense gratification. Why does this evolutionary process happen? Meaning from low class jivas to finally human beings, and low class human being to high class human being, and finally to a Vaishnava. This journey is caused because of fruitive activities. And why do people engage in fruitive activities? Due to undesirable material sense gratification. So in course of this evolutionary process, I have received this human form of life, which can lead to the heavenly planets, to liberation, to lower species, or to rebirth among human beings. Hmm. In this human form of life, men and women unite for the sensual pleasure of sex. But by actual experience, we have observed that none of them are happy. Therefore, seeing the contrary results, I have stopped taking part in materialistic activities. Nobody is happy. So, what is the point? What is the point? And we've also tried again and again and again. Still, we are trying. What is the point? So, this, Avaduta is intelligent. He says, I have seen the futility. So, I just stopped engaging because it's useless, waste of time. Not going to gain anything. The actual form of life for the living entities is one of spiritual happiness, which is real happiness. Hmm. So we started one preaching program called as Path to Happiness. And we say, what is the way to get real happiness? This happiness can be achieved only when one stops all material activities. See, please note this. And this is why this Varnashrama is so important. One has to stop all material activities at some point in our life. Material sense enjoyment is simply an imagination. Imagination. There's nothing we're going to get out of it. Therefore, considering this subject matter, I have ceased from all material activities. And I'm lying down here. In this way, the conditioned soul living within the body forgets his self-interest because he identifies himself with the body. We still identify ourselves with the body, and so we are engaged in sense gratification. Because the body is material, his natural tendency is to be attracted by the varieties of the material world. It's natural. So body's nature is to get attracted by varieties of things in the material world, not the soul. But because the soul is identifying himself with the body, he is also getting attracted by these things. Thus the living entity suffers the miseries of material existence. Okay, it's already 15. So I'll stop here because there's a lot of discussion. So we'll continue tomorrow from 29. Okay. So any questions, comments? All okay? Okay. Nothing else, then we'll close. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय समवेत गौर भक्त की जय हरे कृष्ण okay thank you all for joining
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Pranam.
हरे कृष्णा प्रणम